Hey everybody, today Rahdo runs down Siege Storm, which is a card combat game where one or two players are going to lay siege to their opponent as best they can. And the way it works depends on how you're going to play. This can be played in a standard two-player duel setting, or with the Siege mode, it can also be played solo or co-op. And today I'm going to be showing you just a little bit of how the solo works. Co-op works the same, except each player gets their own board that they travel up. But in a solo game or a regular duel game, there's only one ground board. Now, in a solo game, I'm going up against a boss. In this game, I'm going to go for the level 2 version of Bylos, the Goblin King. And to beat him, I've got to do 25 points of damage. And meanwhile, he's got special power of every time he successfully storms me, his menace level rises. And that is not good, as you might imagine, because I don't want to be menaced. Now, he gets to go first, and at the level 2 version of difficulty, he, in a solo game, gets a hand of 3 cards. If I was playing co-op, he'd get a hand of 4 cards. So he's going to draw 3 cards from his killer deck here of goblins and whatnot. He's got a goblin soldier, a seal of haste, and a goblin tank. Now, of course, this is prototype, so art is coming soon. Anyway, now, first of all, if he has any units on the field of battle, he would move them forward 1, and then he'd start playing his own cards. But at the beginning of the game, of course, he hasn't deployed anything, so the next thing is he's going to deploy. Now, he always tries to deploy the highest value card he can that is not eclipsing his menace level. So if he had like a level 3 character right now, he would have to ignore it because he doesn't have enough menace. But in this case, he's got a bunch of zeros, so he can play all of these cards because his menace starts out at 2. And he can deploy either the goblin tank or the goblin soldier. Now, he wants to deploy the highest value one, but they're both zeros. So since it's a tie, I get to choose. And I think I'll have him deploy the goblin tank instead of the soldier, because the tank does 0 damage, whereas the soldier does 1. So if somebody's coming at me, trying to siege me, I want a guy who doesn't do any damage but has high defense, because, hey, I'm not attacking him this round anyway, so his defense won't help. So anyway, first of all, he deploys a unit. Then, and also, if the unit had any spirit effects on it, he would potentially trigger spirit effects. But this one doesn't have any, so we can ignore that. Then, the next thing he does is he will use special actions. Of the remaining cards, if there are any cards that have this symbol, and there's also another symbol he might activate, he does them. So this goblin soldier who didn't get deployed, every one of these symbols means we take one of these little goblin markers and put it on the deployed unit. So this guy just went from doing no damage to doing 1 point of damage. And now this goblin soldier, to activate that, gets discarded, which means it's effectively out of the game because the boss has 2 life meters. His main one, which I'm trying to do damage to, but his deck is also a life meter of sorts. If I can completely deck him and have him run out of cards, if they all go to the discard and he has no cards to draw, that's a way I could win as well. So he's just lost a card to basically have this goblin soldier join the goblin tank. So now the tank is coming and it's going to do 1 point of damage. Right. So, and there are no other cards that have that ability. And then the last thing he does on his turn is he looks to see if he drew any cards that have the action symbol. And if he did, he activates those cards. So in this case, he's going to trigger the Seal of Haste, which says, move all allies on track 1 space forward. So this tank is charging. He's coming for me. So he might siege me a little bit quicker. And also, this is the spirit symbol. If the Bylos here had any deployed spirit totems, he would charge up those totems with spirit power and hit me with them. But I was lucky, he doesn't have any totems, so that was pretty good. And now this is gone. So his turn is over. He drew 3 cards. He used 2 of them, although one of them only just got him forward. It didn't do its full power. And now it is my turn. Now, at the beginning of the game, I had a starting hand of 2, which I could have mulliganed if I wanted. Because at the early game, I want low value cards. In fact, I think I would have. I think I would have put these at the bottom of my deck and drawn 2 more as part of setup. So let's see, do I have some? Yeah, a Fire Wizard and a Keeper of Secrets. Those are a bit easier to play right from the get-go because they're a bit cheaper. Now, at the beginning of my turn, I draw 2 more. So I've got a level 3 Commander and a level 2 Protective Field. Cool. Now, if I had anybody on my side of the ground board, they would move up automatically, getting closer to seizing him and attacking him to do damage. But of course, at the beginning of the game, I don't. So now I can start playing cards. Now, the boss, he just plays cards in kind of a fixed order. You know, he'll do certain things. Me, I I've got a lot of flexibility, because here is where the true interesting depth of Siege Storm comes from. If you're playing as a dual game, of course, both players are doing it. All these cards are multi-use. First of all, to play a card, you need to spend power to do it. To play this Fire Wizard, the cheapest one I've got, it only costs 1. That means I have to discard one of my remaining cards to put this Fire Wizard into play. And that's very painful, because I want all of these cards. If I had a really expensive card right now, like something that would cost 7, I might choose to discard it, because, hey, I'm not going to be able to play that for a while. But these are all affordable cards. I could just go on ahead and play the Commander right now, but that means I discard all 3 of these other cards. And I die when my deck is empty. So discarding 3 cards, that's very scary. But of course, later on, I'll get a chance to heal and put cards from my discard pile back into my deck. So I could do that. And let's see. But then there's an additional choice. Once I've chosen, say I'm just going to do the Fire Wizard because it's the cheapest. And let's say I will spend my Protective Shield, because he's not coming at me very hard right now. I don't need a shield right now. I might need the protection of a big shield later on. So I'll get rid of it for now because I don't need it. I spent that to play the Fire Wizard. Now that was my first choice. How did I get the card into play? My second choice is, what do I do with it? I could, like the bad guy, put it on the ground so that in future turns it will start moving forward so that it can eventually siege and do damage. And when it sieges, well, actually several things happen when it sieges, but basically it can reach its full potential if I spend several turns letting it move forward to ultimately siege or support or other things. Instead, if I don't want to wait all that time, several turns for it to get up there, I could immediately do its core action, which in this case is deal damage equal to the number of my supporters. Now, unfortunately, at this point, I have no supporters. So now is not a good time for me to use this Fire Wizard's action. But if I had 3 supporters out, I might just say to heck with having him slowly march his way up to the front line, my enemy's front line. I'll just go on ahead and discard him, use the power, and do a bunch of damage right away. I don't have any supporters right now, so I'm going to deploy the Fire Wizard. Now, I've still got a couple of other cards, but if I wanted to use the Keeper of Secrets to use its special power, because I can't deploy anybody else. My deployment space is full, so I can't put anything here. But I could still use the Keeper of Secrets to deal damage equal to the number of cards in my hand. But I can't, because I've only got 1 card left. I'd have to discard 2 to play this, or I'd have to discard 3 to play that. So I think I'm done. And I'm going to keep these in my hand. Next turn, I'll draw up 2 more, and I'll start strategizing more. But that was that. Now it is the boss's turn again. First of all, his bad guys move forward. He's about to siege me and do a point of damage, which basically means if I have any defenses built up in my front line, he might destroy them. Otherwise, he'll just force me to start discarding cards, which is bad. But in the meantime, he draws 3 cards again, and he's got another Goblin Tank and a Goblin Knight and a Destruction Totem, which he can do. He didn't get any of his high-level cards. Let's see, like, say, a Shaman Berserker, who is level 3, who he couldn't deal with. Apparently his high-level cards are deeper, so things are going well for him. His menace level is kind of like my support level, which I haven't talked about. I should probably talk about that pretty soon, because there's so much to this game. But anyway, he's going to choose again. He can deploy. Hey, he's got a level 0 attacker and a level 1. He'll go for the level 1, because he always goes for higher. Then this Goblin Tank, hey, I don't get to go, but since I got the Goblin, I'll make him stronger. So this guy's going to do 2 points of damage. That's gone. And now there is a Destruction Totem. Totems want to deploy themselves to the front line, and if there's something in the front line, they then want to deploy another in no man's land. This is now a special ongoing effect that if he triggers spirit effects in the future, he will deal damage to me. And I've got to destroy this thing because it could slowly whittle me down. But anyway, so that was it. Next turn, this tank is going to hit me and the other one will move up. But back to my turn. Hey, my wizard starts moving her way up. I got another Protect Shield and a Purge Doctor. I could decide to deploy a new one, or I could not deploy something and do actions. But here's the thing. Next round, this tank is going to attack me. But if I say spend 2 cards to get this Protective Shield in, this shield blocks 4 points of damage. So the 1 point of damage he's going to do is going to get absorbed by the shield. The shield will protect me, and then it'll start moving up to ultimately do its special power, as an example. But let's say we zip forward ahead a little bit. And because the bad guys, the boss, if he just goes up, he just tries to do damage to stuff in my front line or damage to me, but only if I don't protect myself by having something deployed there. When my guys siege, I have a few different options. The main one is they actually siege, which means they do however much damage, although the damage might be blocked by something the bad guy has deployed. So I've really got to time it. So if I want to do damage, I need to have the guy siege when there's somebody here who's weak on defense. This guy's strong on defense, so now wouldn't be a good time to siege anyway. But if I siege, not only do I do damage, hopefully getting past this blocker, I also activate their ability. Remember, I could have activated the ability immediately, or I can activate the ability once they finally siege several turns later. Now instead, they might get up here, the ability might not be very good, and they might not hit for very much. So instead, I can make them a support character, which means I put them face down over here, and over time, I start building up a bunch of support cards for guys who didn't siege but instead became support. These become permanent power that I can use to deploy. Like if I wanted to deploy this commander and I had 3 support, I can just tap them and deploy him for free. So building up more support is a big deal. Kind of like him building up menace, which is every time he attacks, his menace goes up. The third thing I can do is, with this fire character, they had a passive ability. As long as he was on the board, there was this passive ability I could spend to use. I could have him reinforce me by coming down here, and I have access to this passive ability until the bad guy kills him. So that, folks, is what Siege Storm is all about. It's got a lot of depth because of all these multi-use cards. Multi-use to get them deployed, multi-use to what you're going to do when they're deployed, and then multi-use once they actually siege and they reach their full potential. This game has a lot of depth, and while I personally was never really interested in it as a 2-player head-to-head duel, now that there are co-op and solo rules, oh, I'm so excited. I've only gotten to play it as a solo game, and it's very challenging, but very fun and very thinky. I cannot wait to play co-op where there are 2 players. My stuff goes up this side, my teammates goes up this side, and the bad guys come down the center. Siege Storm has a lot to offer. It's a very cool card combat game. And that's the rundown, folks. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Talk to you later. So long. Bye-bye.